story of the hour. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is expected to hold a one-on-one meeting with the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff today as diplomatic and strategic efforts intensify. This latest information comes as the Ukrainian president arrived in Paris for high-level talks with his European allies on security guarantees in the event of a peace deal with Russia. The summit brings together the coalition of the willing, which is a group of European states ready to provide long-term security support for Kyiv. Guarantees under discussion include enhanced training for the Ukrainian army and possible deployment of European troops. Joining me on the telecast is Andrew Latham, who's the professor of international relations. He's joining me from Minneapolis in America. Andrew, thank you very much for joining me. And of course, the big point of contention has already been raised by Russia and a retort by the NATO chief ahead of the coalition of the willing, the meeting that is going to take place. The number one point of contention is the security guarantees and the troop deployment that the Europeans have vowed for support and security of Ukraine if at all there is a peace deal that has been struck. Do you think this is something that is actually going to happen, is practically possible in wake of questions being raised by Russia, which continues to refuse and accept any of such security guarantees that the Europeans at this point of time are discussing?
Yeah, well, several points that are worth underscoring, one of which is that Ukraine is still a sovereign nation. And if it wants to invite foreign troops in whatever capacity onto its soil, it can. Now, whether that's wise or prudent, in other words, whether they should do that, that's a different question, politics being politics. I will say, too, that if we look at the example of Korea in 1953, a temporary ceasefire was agreed that has now persisted for almost, well, around 7 decades. But that ceasefire is backed by 28,000 American troops providing security guarantees to the South Koreans. And so we have an historical example in which a ceasefire, not a permanent peace, a ceasefire can be sustained over decades, but it requires security guarantees. There are some security guarantees north of that demilitarized zone as well. So it seems to be a key ingredient for the kind of ceasefire that we're talking about, and yet it is totally unpalatable to Putin and his coterie, who see it just as NATO expansion by other means. What happens if a French or British troop soldier gets involved in a tussle with a Russian soldier across the demilitarized, what would be the demilitarized zone? How would that escalate? It's fraught with all kinds of really negative possibilities. And from Putin's perspective, it's just NATO expansion, as I said, by other means. Will it happen? I imagine now, since both parties, all parties, are so invested in this, they'll find some way to fudge it, find some way to pretend that they are getting what they really want. One thing is for sure, there will not be 28,000 American troops deployed to Ukraine as part of this security guarantee.
Talking about what President Putin has said in the span of the last 24 hours, he said that if Zelenskyy is interested in a peace deal, he should come visit Moscow and hold those talks, or else Putin is going to deploy brute force to end the war. There has not been a significant, strong response that has come thus far from President Trump after that reaction. President Trump, in fact, has said that he is hoping for a peace deal to be signed between Ukraine and Russia. This is what he continues to say. What do you think are the implications of this? Do you think Trump at this point of time has become more docile with regards to the peace deal between both the countries, especially after his meeting with President Putin in Alaska?
Yeah, I think he just wants a peace deal. And I don't think from Trump's perspective, he really cares how that shakes out. He would like a better relationship with Putin, if for no other reason than to drive a wedge between Putin and Xi Jinping, especially after the SCO summit a few days back. But he doesn't see any real American interests in Ukraine, notwithstanding the minerals deal that's been done. On the other hand, he has a vested interest in appearing not to throw Zelenskyy under the bus. So on any given day, at any given hour of any given day, Trump is making different noises. He's sometimes very pro-Zelensky, sometimes very pro-Putin, sometimes somewhere in between. But what we can say is a constant is, and I'm not sure I would put this down to his desire for a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm not sure that I want to go that psychoanalytic route. But what is constant is his desire to get the fighting to stop and to claim some kind of credit for that. As I said, on any given day, he's courting Zelensky, he's pressuring Zelensky, he's courting Putin, he's pressuring Putin. Maybe it's all boiling down to what he's had for breakfast that morning.
All right. Andrew, stay on with me because there are more updates on this story. The Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova